So just yesterday, late in the evening, we got the official announcement from Nintendo that the first new additional N64 game that would be coming to Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack would indeed be Paper Mario 64. And while on the surface, that is a great announcement in and of itself, as it is a true fan classic, it opens up a broader discussion of whether or not we can expect Nintendo to only stick to a one game per month update schedule around N64 titles going forward. And in today's video, I want to address that with you all and talk through some real serious changes that we need to see Nintendo make to make this service truly worth it in the eyes of a lot of their fan base. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. Now, as I mentioned, guys, we're just covering one story today, but it's a very important one, in my opinion, for all of us Nintendo fans out there, and especially the ones who are currently signed up for an annual subscription with this Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack service. And of course, to kick off the conversation, we have to talk about the big update that Nintendo just dropped late yesterday evening, which is that Paper Mario will officially be added to the service on December 10th. And in case you guys forgot, this service originally launched on October 25th. This is the first update we have heard of anything in terms of new content to this service since, of course, it was launched back in October 25th. Now, here's the reason and a quick flashback to why the service was so controversial to begin with. And it primarily starts with the price point, because some people were thinking if Nintendo would, just add in these N64, and then we didn't even know Genesis games were on the table, but there was a lot of rumors around N64 games coming, that maybe they would ask something like $10 more on the annual price, or maybe as high as $15, but nobody thought they would more than double their initial Nintendo Switch Online asking price and charge a $50 annual fee, when all we're really getting is those promise of future N64 games to come. And then, of course, the service launched with 9 N64 games, which of course was a nice lineup and very enjoyable, but there were some problems that we'll hop into in a second. And of course, you can say there's some value on the service added in with Sega Genesis titles as well, but one kind of issue with that is the fact that these games, many of them were already playable through a Sega Genesis Switch cartridge collection that you can go buy for relatively cheap, between 20 and 30 bucks. I think you can pick that thing up, and it has roughly 50 or 55, something like that, total Sega Genesis titles. So it's like, yeah, Genesis is cool, but let's be real, the main attraction for this service was the addition of N64 classic games that, of course, to be fair, are very expensive to play if you want to go hunt down the cartridges at this point, because classic retro gaming collecting has become a whole community in and of itself, and I fall victim to that because I pay those ridiculous prices because I love to have the actual physical cartridges from the games I grew up with. But of course, that's not what we're talking about today. We are talking about the fact that Nintendo, since they have launched this service, has really been very vague, and I think that's like the first issue. I am a big Nintendo fan, I will say that through and through, but one of the issues that I have with them around a couple of the decisions they made with their service is, one, they're not being transparent with their fan base at all, and I think for the asking price, they kind of need to communicate what they were planning with the service better. I wouldn't have such an issue with this if we had a higher monthly subscription option, but I think the first core problem with how they launched the service is you can only sign up for it in an annual basis, meaning as opposed to the base service where you can sign up for $3.99 for 1 month, or do a 3-month membership and pay $7.99 and at least be able to just experience the service for what it is and what it has to offer, and then make your informed decision on what kind of schedule Nintendo's sticking to with things like NES and SNES game updates. You can see if it's worth it to you. Maybe the online play you don't use with your friends as much as you thought you did, which that's a whole nother can of worms we'll cover in a minute as far as how their online system works. But you could either make your informed decision to be happy and continue to spend your money with Nintendo and maybe sign up for the annual membership, or you could just easily let your subscription expire and then you're not on the hook anymore. Well, the expansion pack does not have that monthly option, and that's one of the first big anti-consumer things that I see Nintendo doing here, is they are asking us to commit to a full 12-month schedule of a subscription service for them, with no clear roadmap on their part on what they will be bringing to the table. Now, I'm hopeful and cautiously optimistic optimistic that maybe I am wrong here and Nintendo will deliver more than one N64 game a month, and maybe we'll get some surprise announcements at the Game Awards from them and they'll try to market the service there and drop Majora's Mask or something else that's coming right around the corner. But for the time being, we as fans who have already paid the subscription price, or maybe you're on the fence of potentially signing up for the subscription price, you were given no clear direction from Nintendo on how they will navigate this service going forward, not to mention the fact that we haven't even gotten any mentions of Sega Genesis ads, and we could be in a scenario where Nintendo goes 5 to 6 weeks in between new N64 games, and then maybe they drop 3 Genesis games and think they're good for a month, and we don't even see another N64 game come until the following month. Like, the whole point is that us as paying Nintendo fans are in the dark, and when you put your service at this pricing tier, you are positioned against Sony and Microsoft, which I am a paying PlayStation Plus subscriber at $60 a year, which is of course is just $10 more, and I get things like servers when I play online with relatively no lag issues like what you experience on Nintendo Switch. They do peer-to-peer connections, which means you have to be perfectly in sync with the other player, and if you're not, your game will do micro pauses to keep you in sync. It is effectively just both a cheaper way to deliver online play and really a problematic way in the sense of how much you will experience lag on that online service versus something like when you're running your online netcode through dedicated servers or through some kind of server that Sony or the developer have on their end that they are backing up, like what you find on the other platform. Then when you also compare it to PlayStation Plus, of course Sony is not really competing one-to-one right now with this service because they are not currently offering like a classic back catalog of PS1, PS2, and PS3 games or things like that. Although, side note, and this is totally unrelated to the Nintendo news, apparently they are working on some kind of Game Pass service that could be around the corner where they are going to start giving us those kind of titles. But for the time being, we at least get 3 new titles per month every single month for free that you can add to your library if you are a paying PlayStation Plus subscriber, and that just grows over time. Like, you can just build up your library and download 3 full-scale games. Sometimes still $40, $50, $60 titles are available on PlayStation Plus as part of their paid membership. So you really have to look at this at the broader picture and see what Nintendo is up against in this day and age, because in addition to the lag-free online play, you also have built-in party chat, some basic functionality that has been around. I will remind you guys, this has been around since the original Xbox era, and of course it was a little bit clunky then, but that was 20 years ago. The Xbox just celebrated its 20th anniversary year of release, and then by the time we got to the next iteration of the console, which of course was the Xbox 360 and PS3 era, it was a fully fleshed out service, and you could enjoy online play and party chat and invite your friends into games relatively easily, and it's only gotten better since then. I'm totally understanding that Nintendo has been behind the times with their online infrastructure, but when they're coming out here and asking close to other competitor prices now at this point who do have these infrastructures built out, you can't just expect your fans to pay that price happily and not call you out on where you're dropping the ball. And some of that is around basic online functionality right now, and it's around the lack of transparency on what we know to expect from the service going forward. If I could tell you guys, well, yes, we got 1 game this month, and you know, that's how they're starting off the service, but Nintendo has said that it'll be a consistent 2 to 3 games every month for the remainder of the service. Well, at that point you might say, okay, well now at least I know what Nintendo's planning on, so I'll go ahead and sign up, or I won't be frustrated with my purchase because I actually know what to expect from Nintendo, and I know that Majora's Mask isn't going to be the last game that they add 12 months down the line, like whenever it's time to renew, because we still don't know that. Like, we have no clue when these games are coming, other than the fact that they are in the pipeline, and the first update just being 1 N64 game, and Nintendo just drops that and walks away like they just gave us the world, is a little bit concerning as somebody who has already signed up for this service. And of course, if you guys can do it, this is a total side recommendation, I'm just going off on a rant now, but if you can do it, split this cost between a family plan, because that's how I did it, and it definitely makes it more worth it. But if I paid $50 for just 1 membership, and of course initially it's exciting because you have 9 games to go check out, once you've kind of replayed them and you've gotten your value out of them, you want to see what's next for the service. And I would be relatively frustrated if that's what I paid and I only have 1 membership for that. I have myself splitting it with about 6 different friends now at this point on the family plan, which actually supports up to 8 memberships. So, you know, just a little idea for you guys out there that want to save some money on this service. But regardless, Nintendo should not have their hardcore fan base that want to play these classic titles again totally in the dark around what's to come for the service. In addition to all the other things we just talked about, I really want to see Nintendo address some of the root issues that users such as myself has experienced with some of the emulation problems around these games, most namely Ocarina of Time, which of course is one of my all-time childhood favorite games, and I've replayed that game probably upwards of 30 or 40 times, and I notice when things are a little bit off, as a lot of other fans did online, and pointed out things like input lag, noticeable input lag. And I know some people are more susceptible to it than others. Some people, if you haven't played that game maybe since you were a kid, you don't remember how responsive it was originally, or especially like I spent a ton of time on the GameCube emulated versions of those whenever those games were re-released as part of the collector pack on the GameCube, and this version clearly runs worse than that, and it's not rendering in fog. You can see all of the side-by-side screenshot comparisons that of course are out there online, and I won't deep dive into that, but I do want to see Nintendo actually address these problems and tell us that they'll truly give us a fix at some point, instead of just kind of expecting us just to take it and have no issues with any of the games. It's like, hey, at least you guys get to play these games you couldn't at all before. It's like, no, that's not really a good enough answer. Like, we need to know that you guys are aware of this, and we did have Doug Bowser state that they're always trying to work on, you know, improving the service over time or something to that effect whenever he was asked about some of the emulation issues specifically. But of course, that's just a blanket PR statement. It's no commitment from Nintendo, and I know Nintendo just likes to do Nintendo things, and that's what they're going to continue to do. But my hope is that maybe they will hit a point where they see enough of the fan feedback being loud about these practices that are not consumer friendly, and really start to look at some of it objectively for the price that they are offering. And obviously Nintendo values their IPs. N64 games, as I stated earlier, are very expensive to come by if you want to actually pick them up in cartridge form, and I totally understand that. I get what Nintendo's mindset is with this thing, but I also think that the reality is we are in a competitive gaming space today, and they need to step up their game very clearly when it comes to their online service offering. And I think the step one to do that is just all around through and through transparency. But guys, I really want to hear from you at this point in the video on what Nintendo needs to do to make the service worth it. Maybe you're on the other side of the fence, and I would love to hear from you as well, that this service is more than worth it to you and you haven't had any issues playing any of the games, and maybe you're happy with something like a 1 a month update schedule, or maybe you think Nintendo will indeed do 2 to 3 N64 games per month and we just don't know. So I'd love to hear from both sides of the fence, but definitely if you're on the side where you're either, you know, subscribed to this service and you're maybe unhappy with the $50 value that you're getting so far, or if you're somebody who's on the fence of subscribing but it's not worth it to you yet, I want to hear what Nintendo needs to do to upgrade this service and truly make it worth it in your eyes, and whether or not that means just a more transparent, consistent update schedule around N64 games and Genesis games going forward, or whether or not you're kind of with me and you think it's time for Nintendo to get on board with this voice chat and party chat system, and maybe give us some freaking usernames so we don't have to remember 12-digit user codes, or friend codes rather, out there. Like, it's kind of, again, silly that we're talking about this in 2021 and almost 2022, but as I mentioned, guys, I want to hear from you on all your thoughts and opinions and all things Nintendo Switch Online in the comments down below, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around this topic. Thanks so much for watching the video today, everyone. I do truly appreciate you all sticking around until the end. I do at this point in the video want to invite you all one more time to join Sunbro Nation if you haven't done so already. Do so by subscribing below, hit the like button on your way out if you enjoyed it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. That's going to do it for me, guys. I hope you all have a great day. Sunbro Nation, out.